From the moment humans first looked up at the sky and gazed upon the vastness of the world around them, they began to ask questions. What is the sun? What is the moon? Where do we come from, and what happens after we die? These questions, simple yet profound, echoed to the minds of early humans. And to answer them, they began to weave stories that transcended time and place, stories that were not just for understanding, but for comfort, connection, and meaning. Myths, legends, and tales, passed down from generation to generation, became the foundation of human culture. They were more than just stories. They were attempts to make sense of the world, to create a sense of order in the chaos of existence. The earliest myths were not bound by the strictures of history or fact, but were instead shaped by the human need for explanation and identity. The first myths likely arose from the most basic of human needs: survival. Early humans, living in harsh and unpredictable environments, sought to understand the forces of nature that governed their lives. Why did the seasons change? Why did storms rage and floods rise? These questions were far more than intellectual musings. They were vital to survival. If humans could understand these forces, perhaps they could control them or at least appease them. And so myths were born. The sun became a god, the wind a spirit, and the earth itself was alive with energy. Every aspect of nature was imbued with a purpose, a story, and a divine presence. These were not just symbolic representations, but believed to be real forces that control life and death. In many ways, the birth of myth-making was the birth of culture itself. Early humans began to form societies, and with these societies came a need for shared values, shared beliefs, and shared understanding. Myths provided a framework for this. They gave communities a sense of shared history, a way of explaining how the world came to be and what their place in it was. They also served a social purpose, helping to reinforce societal norms, values, and customs. The stories of gods and heroes, of good and evil, shaped the way people thought, acted, and lived. Through these myths, people could understand what was right and wrong, how to behave toward others, and how to face the challenges of life. The creation of the world, the battle between gods and mortals, and the lessons learned from both triumph and tragedy all played a role in shaping the collective identity of a people. Yet, myths were not always just about explaining the world. They were also about creating a connection to something greater than oneself. In the absence of scientific understanding, myths provided meaning where there was none. The stories offered comfort in times of crisis, hope in times of despair, and a sense of belonging in a world that often seemed unpredictable and dangerous. They were a way to cope with loss, to celebrate the mysteries of life, and to find solace in the idea that we are part of a larger story, one that stretches back to the beginning of time and forward into eternity. As humans began to explore the world beyond their immediate surroundings, myths grew more complex. The early stories that explained natural phenomena evolved into intricate tales of gods and divine beings. These gods were often anthropomorphic, shaped in the image of humans, but with powers far beyond their own. They were not just forces of nature, but characters with personalities, motivations, and emotions. The gods were both benevolent and vengeful, wise and capricious, just and unjust. They interacted with humans in ways that were often unpredictable and mysterious. Through these gods, humans could see themselves reflected, their struggles, desires, fears, and triumphs. The gods were not distant and detached. They were a part of the human experience, embodying both the beauty and the chaos of life. These gods were often seen as guardians of natural forces, gods of the wind, the sea, the harvest, and the stars. Yet, they were also seen as protectors of the people, guiding them through wars, offering wisdom in times of crisis, and ensuring prosperity of the land. And as gods came into being, so too did the stories of heroes who interacted with them. Heroes became the central figures in these myths, men and women who would embark on epic journeys, face impossible odds, and overcome great challenges. These heroes were not always flawless. In fact, many of them were deeply flawed, much like the gods themselves. But it was through their struggles, their mistakes, and their growth that they embodied the very essence of humanity. As time passed, myths became even more sophisticated. They were no longer simply explanations of the world, but became moral and philosophical reflections on the human condition. The stories began to ask deeper questions. What does it mean to be human? What is the nature of good and evil? What is our purpose in life? These questions, though still deeply rooted in the human experience, also reflected the growing intellectual and cultural complexity of early societies. Myths were not just stories to explain nature. They were tools for exploring the depths of the human soul. They were an attempt to answer the most profound questions that humans have always asked, questions that have no clear answers but must be asked nonetheless. In many ways, myths are timeless. Even as societies evolved and new civilizations rose and fell, the fundamental human need to understand the world and our place in it remained the same. The stories may have changed, but the themes remain constant. The struggle between good and evil, the search for meaning in a chaotic world, the desire for immortality, the connection to the divine. These themes continue to resonate with us today. While our understanding of the world may have changed, our need for stories that make us feel connected, that give us purpose and meaning, has not. The power of myth lies in its ability to transcend time and space. While the myths of the ancient world were born in specific cultures and contexts, they continue to live on in the collective human consciousness. They are stories that continue to be told, stories that continue to evolve, but at their core, they remain the same. They are stories that speak to the human heart, that remind us of our shared humanity, and that offer us a glimpse into mysteries of existence. These stories, whether they were told around a campfire thousands of years ago or read in books today, have one thing in common. They speak to the soul. They offer comfort, hope, and a sense of understanding in a world that is often confusing and difficult to navigate. And it is through these stories, these myths, that we begin to understand not just the world around us, but the world within us. They are not just the stories of our ancestors, but the stories of ourselves, told in a language that transcends time and space. As we delve deeper into the myths and legends from around the world, we will explore how these stories shaped the cultures that created them, how they were passed down through generations, and how they continue to influence us today. But before we embark on that journey, it is important to remember that these myths are not just ancient relics. They are living, breathing stories that continue to resonate with us, that continue to shape our understanding of the world and our place in it. Through these myths, we connect not just with the past, but with the eternal human experience. In the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers flowed to the heart of what is now modern-day Iraq, humanity began to form its first great civilizations. Among the earliest people to settle in this fertile crescent were the Sumerians, the Akkadians, and later the Babylonians. It was here, in this cradle of civilization, that some of the world's most enduring myths were born. These myths were not just stories. They were an essential part of life. They explained the origins of the world, the cycles of nature and human condition, all while providing a framework for understanding the divine. The Sumerians, who are often credited with creating the first written language, gave us some of the earliest examples of epic storytelling. One of their most famous myths is the Epic of Gilgamesh, a tale that revolves around a hero king named Gilgamesh, whose quest for immortality and wisdom mirrors the very human desire to transcend the limitations of life. Gilgamesh, 2/3 god and 1/3 man, is a powerful and flawed figure. His reign is marked by tyranny, as he oppresses the people of his city, Uruk. But the gods, in response to the suffering of the people, create a wild man named Enkidu, who is to be Gilgamesh's equal and counterbalance. Enkidu is introduced into the story as a force of nature, untamed and free. But through his interactions with humans, particularly his friendship with Gilgamesh, he becomes civilized. Together, the two embark on a series of adventures that include slaying the monstrous Humbaba, the guardian of the cedar forest, and defeating the bull of heaven, sent by the goddess Ishtar. Despite their heroics, it is the death of Enkidu that sends Gilgamesh on the most profound journey of all, the journey to find the secret of immortality. In his search, Gilgamesh encounters Utnapishtim, the immortal survivor of a great flood that mirrors the later biblical flood story of Noah. Utnapishtim tells Gilgamesh of the god's decision to destroy humanity with a deluge, and how he was chosen to build a great boat to save himself, his family, and pairs of animals. But Utnapishtim also tells Gilgamesh that immortality is beyond the reach of mortals, and that the key to life is accepting death. This realization is one of the central themes of the Epic of Gilgamesh. The acceptance of mortality and the understanding that life, though fleeting, holds meaning in the relationships we build and the legacy we leave behind. The myth of Gilgamesh touches upon universal themes of friendship, the search for meaning, the inevitability of death, and the desire to leave a lasting mark on the world. It resonates even today because it addresses the core aspect of the human experience: love, loss, and the yearning for something greater than oneself. It is a story of transformation, of a king who evolves from a selfish, reckless ruler into a wiser, more compassionate leader through the trials and tribulations he faces along his journey. But Mesopotamian mythology is not only about Gilgamesh. The gods and goddesses of this ancient world were as diverse and complex as the people who worshipped them. Ishtar, the goddess of love, beauty, and war, is a powerful figure in Mesopotamian myths. She is portrayed as both a nurturing and vengeful deity, capable of great kindness and wrath. Her story of love and revenge is intertwined with the fate of the hero Gilgamesh, who rejects her advances. In response, she unleashes a bull of heaven upon Uruk, leading to a devastating battle. The myth of Ishtar reveals the complexities of divine power and the capricious nature of the gods, who are not distant and detached, but very much involved in the affairs of mortals. The god Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon, also plays a central role in Mesopotamian mythology. Marduk is a warrior god, a protector of the people, and a creator deity who is often depicted as slaying the chaotic forces of the universe. One of the most significant myths involving Marduk is the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. In this story, the world is born out of chaos in the battle between the gods. The primordial goddess Tiamat, often depicted as a dragon or serpent, represents the forces of chaos, while Marduk symbolizes order and civilization. In a climactic battle, Marduk defeats Tiamat and uses her body to create the heavens and the earth. This myth not only explains the origins of the world, but also reflects the values of the Babylonians, who saw Marduk as the ultimate force of order and creation. The Enuma Elish is a powerful narrative that not only defines the creation of the cosmos, but also the foundation of Babylonian religious and political identity. Marduk's victory over Tiamat is symbolic of the triumph of civilization over chaos, and it reinforces the idea that the gods are active participants in the shaping of the world. For the Babylonians, Marduk's power was reflected in the might of their empire, which they believed was divinely ordained. The epic also establishes the importance of rituals and ceremonies in maintaining cosmic order. Through the telling of this story, the Babylonians reinforced their cultural values of law, justice, and a belief in the divine right of kings. But Mesopotamian mythology was not only about gods and heroes. It also explored the relationship between humans and the divine. The gods were not always benevolent or predictable. They were often capricious and temperamental, and their interactions with humans were marked by both kindness and cruelty. Humans were not seen as equals to the gods, but rather as their creations, subject to their will. And yet, despite this hierarchy, the gods often took an active interest in the lives of mortals. They could bless or curse, protect or punish, and their favor was sought through prayer, sacrifice, and ritual. The Mesopotamians believed that the gods were deeply involved in the fate of individuals and cities. They built grand temples and performed elaborate rituals to honor the gods, hoping to earn their favor and protection. In return, the gods provided guidance, fertility, and prosperity. But the relationship between humans and the god was fragile, and a slight misstep could lead to divine wrath. The god demanded respect, and their anger was often swift and destructive. Yet, amid the uncertainties of divine favor and the unpredictability of fate, Mesopotamian mythology offers people a sense of structure and meaning. The stories of the gods and heroes were more than just tales of ancient beings. They were reflections of the human condition. The gods, with their love and anger, their victories and defeats, mirror the triumphs and struggles of the people themselves. The myths provided not only explanations for the natural world, but also moral lessons, offering guidance on how to live in harmony with the gods, with nature, and with each other. As we step back from these ancient myths, we begin to realize that they are not just relics of a distant past. They are deeply embedded in the fabric of human culture and identity. The stories of Gilgamesh, Ishtar, Marduk, and others have shaped the way we understand our world. They have influenced art, literature, philosophy, and religion, and their themes of love, power, fate, and the search for meaning continue to resonate with us today. These myths, born in the heart of Mesopotamia, have stood the test of time, reminding us of the enduring power of storytelling to shape our understanding of the world and ourselves. Dawn breaks over the vast, endless desert of Egypt, a land that has been shaped by the eternal flow of the Nile. Here, in this cradle of civilization, myths began to form, deeply entwined with the daily lives of the people. The ancient Egyptians, with their deep reverence for the natural world and the gods that governed it, constructed a complex and rich mythology that sought to explain not only the origin of the world, but the intricate relationship between life and death. Central to this mythology was the understanding that death was not an end, but a transition, a continuation of existence in a realm beyond the physical world. The gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt were numerous and powerful, each representing different aspects of life, nature, and the afterlife. At the heart of this mythology stood the god Osiris, whose story forms the cornerstone of Egyptian beliefs about life, death, and resurrection. Osiris, once a mighty king of Egypt, ruled with wisdom and fairness. His reign was a time of prosperity and peace. He taught the people how to farm, how to live in harmony with nature, and how to respect the divine. But Osiris's brother, Set, the god of chaos and destruction, became envious of his power and popularity. Driven by jealousy and hatred, Set tricked Osiris into a trap. He sealed Osiris in a coffin and cast it into the Nile, where it was carried away and ultimately found by Osiris's wife, Isis. The grief-stricken Isis, with the help of her sister Nephthys and the god Anubis, searched tirelessly for her husband's body. When she finally found it, she performed powerful rituals to bring Osiris back to life. However, Set, unwilling to accept Osiris's return, dismembered his body and scattered the pieces across Egypt. Once again, Isis set out to recover her husband's remains, and through her magical powers, she reassembled his body and resurrected him. Though Osiris was no longer able to rule on earth, he became the god of the afterlife, the ruler of the realm of the dead. His resurrection symbolized the eternal cycle of life and death, and it was through Osiris that the Egyptians believed they, too, could achieve eternal life. The story of Osiris is not just a tale of betrayal and resurrection. It is a profound reflection of the Egyptian worldview. Life was seen as a continuous cycle, birth, death, and rebirth, much like the cycles of the Nile River, which brought life to the land and then receded, only to return again. This idea of eternal renewal was central to the Egyptian understanding of existence. The myth of Osiris and his resurrection became a symbol of hope, reassuring the people that death was not the end, but rather the beginning of a new journey. Just as Osiris was reborn, so too could the souls of the dead be reborn into the afterlife, provided they lived in harmony with the gods and followed the moral code of Ma'at, the divine order of truth, justice, and balance. Osiris's wife, Isis, was also a key figure in Egyptian mythology. She was a goddess of magic, healing, and motherhood, and her devotion to her husband and son, Horus, made her one of the most beloved deities in ancient Egypt. Isis's magic and wisdom were seen as protective forces, and she was often invoked in times of need. Her story, too, is one of transformation and resilience. She embodied the nurturing, maternal aspect of life, and her role in resurrecting Osiris reflected the Egyptian belief in the power of love and devotion to transcend even death. The story of Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, is another integral part of Egyptian mythology. Horus was a falcon-headed god who represented the living pharaoh, the earthly ruler who was believed to be the earthly incarnation of Horus. The myth of Horus and Set, his uncle and the god of chaos, is one of struggle and conflict. After the death of Osiris, Horus sought to avenge his father and reclaim the throne of Egypt from Set. The battles between Horus and Set were fierce and dramatic, symbolizing the eternal struggle between order and chaos, good and evil. In the end, Horus triumphed, and his victory was a testament to the divine right of the pharaohs to rule, as they were seen as Horus's earthly representatives. The mythology of the afterlife was just as intricate as the stories of the gods. The ancient Egyptians believed that the soul after death embarked on a perilous journey to the afterlife, where it would be judged by the god Osiris. This journey was fraught with dangers, as the soul had to navigate to the underworld, known as Duat, where it would encounter various challenges and obstacles. The soul would then face the judgment of the god Anubis, who weighed the heart of the deceased against a feather of Ma'at. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, it meant that the person had lived a life in accordance with Ma'at, and their soul would be granted eternal life in the fields of Yeru, a paradise where they could live in peace and abundance. However, if the heart was heavier than the feather, it would be devoured by Amit, a fearsome creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lioness, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. This would result in the soul being cast into eternal darkness, a fate worse than death. The concept of the afterlife was one of the most significant aspects of Egyptian religion, and the belief in life after death shaped many aspects of daily life. The elaborate burial practices, the construction of tombs, and the preservation of the body through mummification were all aimed at ensuring a smooth transition to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that by honoring the dead and performing the correct rituals, they could ensure that the deceased would continue to live in the world beyond. The tombs of the pharaohs, with their treasures and offerings, were seen as gateways to the afterlife, where the soul of the deceased could continue to enjoy the pleasures of life, forever protected by the gods. The gods and goddesses of Egypt were not distant, detached beings, but were intimately involved in the lives of the people. The Egyptians believed that the gods were present in every aspect of life, from the daily activities of farming and trading to the grand ceremonies in the temples. The divine was not confined to the heavens, but was deeply embedded in the earth itself, in the rivers, the plants, the animals, and the stars. The gods were seen as the caretakers of the world, and it was through their favor that the people could prosper. The pyramids, the temples, and the grand monuments of Egypt are all physical testaments to the power of this mythology. They were not simply tombs or structures of worship. They were symbols of the eternal connection between the gods and the people, a way to bridge the gap between the living and the divine. The legacy of ancient Egypt, with its myths, belief, and rituals, has endured for thousands of years, and its influence continues to be felt today. The stories of Osiris, Isis, Horus, and the other gods and goddesses of Egypt continue to resonate with us, reminding us of the power of belief, the mysteries of the afterlife, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The ancient Egyptians, through their myths, gave us not only a vision of the afterlife, but also a profound understanding of the cyclical nature of life itself. In the vast and ancient land of India, the roots of mythology run deep, stretching back thousands of years. The stories of gods, goddesses, heroes, and sages have shaped the spiritual and philosophical foundation of not only India, but also the broader world. The two great epics of India, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, stand as monumental pillars of this rich tradition, embodying not just tales of divine intervention, but also intricate reflections on human nature, morality, duty, and destiny. The Ramayana, attributed to the sage Valmiki, is the story of Prince Rama, his wife Sita, and his unwavering quest to rescue her from the demon king Ravana. The tale is as much about the pursuit of dharma, righteous duty, as it is about devotion, love, and the triumph of good over evil. Rama, the seventh incarnation of the god Vishnu, is portrayed as the ideal man, embodying virtues such as truth, loyalty, courage, and humility. His journey, however, is far from simple. The narrative begins with the divine birth of Rama and his family in the kingdom of Ayodhya, where he is the eldest son of King Dashratha. His life is set on a path of duty from the very beginning. But fate has other plans, and after being promised a throne, Rama is exiled to the forest for 14 years, as a result of a promise his father made to one of his wives. This exile, though a personal hardship, sets the stage for the profound spiritual and moral lessons that Rama will encounter. Sita, the embodiment of purity and devotion, accompanies her husband into the wilderness, following him without hesitation, despite the dangers that lie ahead. It is in the forest, however, that the drama truly begins. The demon king Ravana, smitten by Sita's beauty, kidnaps her and takes her to his island kingdom of Lanka. What follows is a long and arduous journey of Rama, aided by his loyal brother Lakshmana and the devoted monkey god Hanuman, to rescue his wife. Throughout this journey, Rama faces tremendous challenges, from battling powerful demons to forging alliances with other beings like the monkeys and bears, who play crucial roles in his quest. The story of Rama's battle with Ravana is one of the most iconic in Indian mythology. Ravana, a learned and powerful king, represents the dark side of ambition and ego. His 10 head symbolizes vast knowledge and power, but his pride and arrogance lead him to commit unspeakable acts like kidnapping Sita. Rama's victory over Ravana is a symbolic victory over these darker forces. However, The tale of the Ramayana does not just focus on heroism. It delves deeply into themes of duty, sacrifice, and moral conflict. Rama's commitment to Dharma is tested at every step, from his willingness to live in exile to his adherence to the truth, even when it causes him personal pain. His relationship with Sita, too, is not simple. After rescuing her, Rama asks for her to undergo a trial by fire to prove her purity. Though Sita emerges unscathed, this moment highlights the complex interplay of honor, suspicion, and faith in epic. The Mahabharata, perhaps the longest epic poem ever written, is a much grander and more complex narrative. It tells the story of the Kurukshetra War, a monumental battle between two sets of cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas, over the throne of the kingdom of Hastinapura. While the Ramayana focuses on the quest of a single hero, the Mahabharata is a sprawling, multi-layered story that intertwines the fates of hundreds of characters. At its heart are the 5 Pandava brothers, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sadeva, who represent different virtues, each one embodying a facet of Dharma. Their enemies, the Kauravas, led by the ambitious Duryodhana, are equally complex, representing the destructive forces of greed, pride, and hatred. The epic opens with the complex relationship between the Pandavas and Kauravas. From their early childhood, the two factions are entangled in a web of rivalry, jealousy, and intrigue. The Kauravas, who are the sons of the blind king Dhritarashtra, resent the Pandavas, the sons of his brother Pandu, and a bitter conflict ensues. The Kauravas use every trick in the book to deny the Pandavas their rightful share of the kingdom, culminating in a rigged game of dice that results in the Pandavas losing their kingdom and going into exile for 12 years. But it is during this exile that the Pandavas' true nature is tested. They spend their time in the wilderness, not as defeated men, but as seekers of wisdom, strength, and justice. The turning point of the Mahabharata comes when the Pandavas return to claim their kingdom. Despite their attempts to resolve the issue peacefully, war becomes inevitable, and the great battle of Kurukshetra is set to unfold. But before the battle, the epic takes a significant spiritual turn. On the eve of the war, Arjuna, the greatest of the Pandavas and a warrior of unparalleled skill, is torn by doubt and despair. He faces a moral crisis, unable to reconcile his duty as a warrior with the idea of killing his own kin. This is where the Bhagavad Gita, the most philosophical and spiritual section of the Mahabharata, comes into play. Krishna, who serves as Arjuna's charioteer, reveals his divine nature to Arjuna and imparts profound wisdom about life, duty, and the nature of existence. The Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna that addresses the most fundamental questions of human life. Krishna urges Arjuna to fulfill his dharma, his duty as a warrior, and a fight without attachment to the outcome. He explains that life and death are part of the eternal cycle, and that one must not be swayed by the temporary emotions of fear, greed, or pride. The message of the Gita is clear. One must act according to their divine duty, without attachment to the fruits of their actions. This message transcends a battlefield and speaks to the universal struggles of human life. The struggle to find purpose, to fulfill one's destiny, and to understand the nature of existence. The Kurukshetra War itself, which lasts for 18 days, is a cataclysmic event. Warriors on both sides are killed, including beloved figures like Bhishma and Drona, who are bound by honor and duty to fight despite their reluctance. The world of Greek mythology is as vast as it is captivating, filled with gods, heroes, and creatures that have become iconic symbols in the cultural imagination of the Western world. The ancient Greeks, with their rich oral tradition, crafted stories that sought to explain the forces of nature, the origins of the world, and the complexities of human existence. These stories were more than mere tales. They were reflections of the values, struggles, and aspirations of civilization that, despite its many flaws, gave birth to concepts that would shape philosophy, art, and governance for millennia. The gods of Mount Olympus, with their vast array of powers, personalities, and flaws, stand as representations of the human experience, embodying both the heights of divinity and the depths of human weakness. At the very heart of Greek mythology is a pantheon of gods who resided on Mount Olympus, the highest peak in Greece. Zeus, the king of the gods, was the most powerful and was often depicted as a figure of both authority and compassion. As the god of the sky, thunder, and lightning, Zeus held dominion over the heavens and the earth, commanding the forces of nature to do his bidding. But Zeus's reign was not without its complications. His many affairs with mortals and immortals alike were often a source of conflict, both for him and for the gods who shared Olympus with him. His wife, Hera, the goddess of marriage and family, was a figure of both grace and jealousy, frequently embittered by Zeus's infidelities. The dynamics between these two deities illustrate the complexities of Greek mythology, where even the most powerful figures were far from perfect, and their flaws often led to dramatic consequences. Hera's story, though often marked by bitterness, is also one of great power and influence. As a goddess of marriage and childbirth, she symbolized the sanctity and strength of family. Yet, the mythological tales surrounding her reveal a goddess whose fury and jealousy were often destructive. Her vengeance upon the lovers and illegitimate children of her husband Zeus became a recurring theme in Greek mythology, and these stories of jealousy and revenge were used as cautionary tales about the dangers of infidelity and betrayal. Hera's role in these stories, despite her often vengeful nature, underscores the Greek worldview that the gods, while all-powerful, were deeply intertwined with the very human emotions of love, betrayal, and jealousy. Then there was Poseidon, the god of the sea, storms, and horses, whose character was as volatile as the waters he ruled. Poseidon's influence extended beyond the sea. He was a god of creation and destruction, responsible for earthquakes and tidal waves. His temper was legendary, and his wrath could shake the very earth. Yet, Poseidon was not just a figure of destruction. He was also a protector, particularly of sailors, who would often pray to him for safety on their perilous journeys across the seas. Poseidon's character embodies the dual nature of the gods, where destruction and creation exist in a delicate balance, one that reflects the unpredictability of the natural world. Then there was Hades, the god of the underworld, who ruled over the realm of the dead. Unlike the other gods, Hades was not seen as a villain, but as a necessary figure, a god who ensured the order of life and death. Hades' domain was dark and shadowy, filled with souls of the deceased who passed through his realm on their journey to the afterlife. The myth of Hades and Persephone, his abduction of the goddess of spring, illustrates his complex nature. While Hades took Persephone to be his queen, he was also portrayed as a god who, despite his fearsome reputation, showed deep affection for his wife. The myth of Persephone's annual return to the earth marked the changing of the seasons, symbolizing the cyclical nature of life and death, a theme central to Greek thought. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was another central figure in Greek mythology. Born from the foam of the sea, Aphrodite's beauty was so captivating that it could stir both desire and discord. Her relationship with Ares, the god of war, was fraught with passion and tension, reflecting the tension between love and conflict. Aphrodite's role in the myths highlights the power of beauty and attraction, which could lead to both harmony and discord. Her ability to manipulate love, seduction, and desire was both a gift and a curse, as her actions often led tumultuous consequences for mortals and gods alike. In contrast to the divine beauty of Aphrodite, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and war, embodied a different aspect of femininity. Athena was born fully grown in armor from the head of her father, Zeus, after he swallowed her mother, Metis, a virgin goddess. Athena was a symbol of intellect and reason, often portrayed as a protector of cities, and the patron goddess of Athens. Athena's wisdom was revered by both mortals and gods, and her role in the Iliad and Odyssey demonstrated her ability to influence events through strategic thinking rather than brute force. Her partnership with heroes like Odysseus and Perseus exemplifies the idea that wisdom and courage are just as important as strength and power in the face of adversity. The stories of Greek heroes are no less fascinating, and often stand in stark contrast to the exploits of the gods. Heroes like Heracles, Perseus, and Theseus were mortal men who were elevated to the status of gods due to their remarkable feats. Heracles, perhaps the most famous of these heroes, was known for his incredible strength and his 12 labors, which he was tasked with completing as punishment for killing his wife and children in a fit of madness caused by the goddess Hera. Despite his godly parentage, he was the son of Zeus. Heracles was plagued by personal tragedy and struggles with his own temper, which added a deeply human dimension to his character. His trials were often violent and seemingly impossible, yet his ability to persevere, despite his flaws, made him a symbol of resilience. Perseus, another celebrated hero, was famous for slaying the Gorgon Medusa, a task that seemed insurmountable but was achieved with the help of gods like Athena and Hermes. Perseus' journey was one of transformation, from a humble mortal to a hero who, through courage and divine aid, overcame the most terrifying of foes. His story embodies a recurring theme in Greek mythology that even the most unlikely of heroes can triumph with the help of the gods. Theseus, the founder hero of Athens, is another figure whose exploits shaped the very foundation of Greek civilization. Known for slaying the Minotaur, a monstrous half-man, half-bull creature that resided in a labyrinth, Theseus demonstrated not only physical bravery, but also intelligence. His triumph over the Minotaur was symbolic of Athens' rise as a powerful city-state, and his journey marked the transition from a mythological age to a more historical and political one, where heroes became intertwined with the destiny of the people. The myth of the Trojan War, the subject of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, is one of the most enduring stories of Greek mythology. The war, sparked by the abduction of Helen by Paris, the Prince of Troy, led to 10 years of brutal conflict between the Greeks and the Trojans. Heroes like Achilles, Hector, and Odysseus were central figures in this epic struggle, each embodying different aspects of heroism. Achilles, the greatest of the Greek warriors, was a figure of raw strength and rage, while Hector, the Trojan prince, was a model of honor and duty. The war and its aftermath, filled with both victory and sorrow, explored the futility of violence and the tragic consequences of pride, honor, and vengeance. Through these gods, heroes, and stories, Greek mythology offers profound insights into the complexities of the human experience. The gods were not perfect beings. They were powerful but flawed, often acting out jealousy, love, and revenge. The heroes, too, were not mere paragons of virtue. They were deeply human, struggled with their own weaknesses and shortcomings. These myths, filled with both triumph and tragedy, continue to resonate because they reflect the tensions between human desires and divine will, between fate and free will, and between pursuit of glory and the cost of that pursuit. They remind us that even the greatest among us are imperfect, and that our actions, however heroic, are often shaped by forces beyond our control. In the lush, mist-filled landscapes of ancient Europe, where towering trees and flowing rivers carve through the earth, the Celts lived their lives deeply connected to the forces of nature. They believed that the natural world was inhabited by a host of spiritual beings, gods, spirits, and creatures, whose power could be harnessed or appeased through rituals, offerings, and respect for the land. The myths and legends of the Celts were profoundly rooted in the world around them, the forests, the rivers, the mountains, and the animals. These stories were not simply explanations of the world's mysteries, but were integral to the very fabric of Celtic culture, guiding the way people lived, interacted with nature, and understood their place in the universe. The gods and goddesses in Celtic mythology were not distant, detached figures. They were present in every aspect of life, reflecting the interconnectedness between humans, nature, and the divine. At the heart of Celtic mythology was the belief in the otherworld, a mystical realm that existed alongside the physical world. The otherworld was a place of magic and mystery, where gods, spirits, and heroes could move freely, and where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred. It was a land of eternal youth, beauty, and abundance, but it was also a place that could be both inviting and dangerous. To the Celts, the otherworld was not a distant afterlife, but a parallel existence, often accessible through certain sacred places, such as ancient mounds, caves, or forests. In some myths, the otherworld was seen as a place of healing and rest, while in others, it was a realm of challenge and transformation, where mortals could gain wisdom or power by crossing its thresholds. The gods and goddesses of the Celts were deeply intertwined with the natural world, each one governing different aspects of life, from fertility and harvest to war and wisdom. One of the most significant figures in Celtic mythology was the Great Mother Goddess, often known as Danu or Brigid. She was seen as the embodiment of fertility, motherhood, and the cycles of nature. Brigid, in particular, was revered as a goddess of fire, healing, poetry, and craftsmanship. Her presence was felt in every season, particularly during the turning points of the Celtic calendar, such as Imbolc, when the first stirrings of spring could be felt in the earth. The Celts believed that Brigid's power could be invoked for a variety of purposes: to aid in childbirth, to inspire creativity, and to ensure the prosperity of the land. Her role in their myths was central to understanding the cyclical nature of life, where creation and destruction were two sides of the same coin, each essential to the renewal of the world. But not all Celtic deities were benevolent or nurturing. The god Lugh, for instance, was a multifaceted figure, representing the sun, light, and war. Known as a god of skill, craftsmanship, and battle, Lugh's story is one of both heroism and tragedy. He was a warrior who fought alongside the other gods in their struggle against the dark forces that threatened to destroy the world. Lugh's influence extended far beyond the battlefield, however. He was also a god of abundance and prosperity, and his festivals were times of celebration and thanksgiving for the harvest. Despite his many virtues, Lugh's journey was not without difficulty. His ability to combine different aspects of his divine power, his wisdom, his strength, and his craft, made him a complex figure in Celtic mythology, one whose story reflected the tension between creation and destruction, light and dark. The Celts also revered the forces of nature itself, embodied in a variety of sacred beings and creatures. The oak tree, for example, was a symbol of strength, endurance, and wisdom. The Celts believed that the oak held a special connection to the gods, and oak groves were often seen as sacred spaces where the divine could be felt most strongly. The mistletoe that grew on the oak was particularly significant, believed to hold powerful magical properties, capable of healing and protection. Druids, the priestly class of the Celts, were believed to possess deep knowledge of the natural world and the ability to communicate with the gods. They conducted rituals in the oak groves, using the sacred trees and plants to invoke the divine forces and ensure the well-being of the people. Among the most iconic creatures in Celtic mythology was the raven, which was often associated with war, death, and prophecy. The raven was seen as a messenger between the living world and the otherworld, capable of guiding souls to the afterlife. The goddess Morrigan, one of the most powerful and mysterious deities in Celtic mythology, was often depicted as a raven or as a trio of sisters, each one embodying different aspects of war, fate, and death. The Morrigan's presence in the myths was a reminder of the ever-present connection between life and death, and a belief that the gods could shape the fates of mortals, particularly in battle. Her role as a harbinger of doom and transformation made her a figure to be both feared and revered, representing the inescapable nature of fate and the power of the divine. The relationship between gods and mortals in Celtic mythology was complex and multifaceted. Unlike in many other traditions, where the gods were distant, all-powerful beings, the Celtic gods were more closely intertwined with the lives of humans. They interacted with mortals, granted boons, and sometimes punished those who failed to honor the sacred laws of nature. The gods were not always seen as perfect or all-knowing. They had their own flaws, their own desires, and their own personal struggles. This made them more relatable to the Celts, who saw in their gods the same passions and challenges that they face in their own lives. The gods of the Celts were not removed from the human condition, but were deeply connected to it, for better or worse. One of the most enduring and tragic stories in Celtic mythology is the tale of Cuchulainn, a hero who embodied the virtues of bravery, loyalty, and strength. Cuchulainn's story is one of transformation, from a young warrior with great potential to a tragic figure whose fate was sealed by his own choices. He was a protector of his people, the Ulaid, and his feats in battle earned him great renown. However, Cuchulainn's life was also marked by personal loss and sacrifice. His famous battle against the armies of Connacht, known as the Táin Bó Cúailnge, is filled with moments of heroism and destruction. Despite his great victories, Cuchulainn's fate was sealed by a curse, and his death, fought alone on the battlefield, is one of the most poignant and sorrowful moments in Celtic myth. His story reflects the idea that the greatest heroes are often those who suffer the most, and that even in victory, there is a cost to be paid. The Celts were not only concerned with the gods and heroes, but also with the relationship between life and death. The concept of the afterlife was deeply embedded in their mythology, with a strong belief in the continuation of the soul after death. Norse mythology is steeped in the cold winds and mist of northern Europe, where towering mountains and vast forests stretch across the land, and where the sea crashes against rugged shores. It is a mythology born from the harsh, unforgiving landscapes of Scandinavia, Iceland, and other parts of the North, and it reflects the resilience, strength, and complexity of the people who live there. The Norse gods, their battles, and the epic tales of heroes and monsters are not merely stories of power and glory. They are deeply philosophical reflections on fate, destiny, and the cyclical nature of the universe. In the Norse world, gods and mortals are inextricably linked, each playing a role in the great drama of the cosmos, where even the mightiest of beings are subject to the inevitability of fate. At the center of Norse mythology stands Odin, the All-Father, the god who rules over Asgard, the realm of the gods. Odin is a complex and multifaceted figure, embodying wisdom, war, death, and the pursuit of knowledge. As the chief of the Aesir gods, Odin governs the sky, the elements, and the fate of men. He is often depicted as an old, wise figure with a single eye and a long beard, constantly seeking knowledge and insight, even at great personal cost. His quest for wisdom led him to sacrifice one of his eyes in exchange for a drink from the well of wisdom, a decision that symbolizes the theme of sacrifice that runs throughout Norse mythology. Odin's desire for knowledge and power over fate is central to his character. He understands that the world is in constant flux, and he seeks to prepare for the end of the world, Ragnarok, by accumulating knowledge of the future. Odin's wisdom is often conveyed through his many ventures, including his magical spear, Gungnir, and his ability to speak to the dead. He is also the father of many significant gods and heroes, including Thor, the god of thunder, and Loki, the trickster god. Thor, perhaps the most beloved of all the Norse gods, is the embodiment of strength and courage. He is often portrayed as a mighty warrior, wielding the hammer Mjolnir, which he uses to protect the gods and humans from the monstrous creatures that threaten their world. Thor's strength is unmatched, but it is his sense of duty and honor that define him. He battles giants, trolls, and other terrifying creatures, and his role in Norse mythology is that of protector, the defender of both gods and humans. Despite his immense power, Thor is not invulnerable, and his struggles highlight the ever-present danger in the Norse world, where even the mightiest gods are constantly under threat. Loki, on the other hand, is a more enigmatic figure, a trickster god who embodies chaos, mischief, and unpredictability. Unlike Thor, Loki is not defined by strength or honor, but by his cunning and ability to shapeshift. He is a god who plays both sides, causing trouble for the gods and mortals alike. While he is often depicted as a mischievous figure, Loki's role in Norse mythology is far more profound. He is responsible for several key events that shape the destiny of the gods, including the birth of the monstrous wolf Fenrir, the serpent Jormungandr and the half-dead, half-living Hel, ruler of the realm of the dead. Loki's actions ultimately lead to the downfall of the gods, as his betrayal of Odin and the other Aesir gods sets in motion the events of Ragnarok, the final battle between the gods and the forces of chaos. The concept of fate, or WIRD, is deeply ingrained in Norse mythology, and the gods themselves are not immune to it. The Norns, three ancient beings who reside at the base of Yggdrasil, the world tree, are the weavers of fate. They are often depicted as controlling the destinies of gods and mortals alike, weaving the threads of life and death with an unyielding hand. The Norns are not malevolent beings, but they are relentless in their role. The idea that even the gods are bound by fate is a central theme in Norse mythology, where no one, no matter how powerful, can escape their ultimate end. This inevitability of fate gives Norse mythology a somber tone, where even the gods are aware of their impending doom, and yet they continue to fight against it. Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world, is a battle that is foreseen, and the gods know that they will ultimately fall. This acceptance of fate, coupled with the courage to face it head-on, defines the Norse worldview. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, is the most significant event in Norse mythology, where the gods and their enemies engage in a cataclysmic battle that results in the destruction of the world. It is a prophecy that the gods cannot escape, and it is both a tragic and transformative event. The battle is fought between the Aesir gods, led by Odin, and the forces of chaos, represented by giants, monsters, and Loki himself. Thor, despite his strength, will ultimately face the serpent Jormungandr, and though he will kill the beast, he will die from its venom shortly after. Odin will face Fenrir, the great wolf, and although he will fight valiantly, he too will be slain. Loki, who has long been a harbinger of chaos, will lead the forces of destruction, and his role in bringing about Ragnarok is seen as a betrayal of the gods. The end of the world, however, is not without rebirth. After the destruction, the world will be reborn and a new order will emerge. It is the cyclical nature of life and death that defines the Norse cosmology, where destruction is not an end but a necessary step in the process of renewal. One of the most fascinating aspects of Norse mythology is the way in which it intertwines the spiritual and the natural worlds. Yggdrasil, the world tree, stand at the center of the cosmos, linking all 9 realms together. The tree itself is both a symbol of the interconnectedness of all things and a reflection of the cyclical nature of life. The gods reside in Asgard, the realm of the Aesir, while humans live in Midgard, the realm of Earth. Other realms include Jotunheim, the land of the giants, and Alfheim, the land of the light elves. Each realm is connected to Yggdrasil, and the tree's roots reach deep into the underworld, where the dragon Nidhogg gnaws at them, symbolizing the destructive forces that threaten the stability of the world. The image of Yggdrasil as the axis of the universe reflects the Norse belief in the interdependence of all things, from the gods to the mortals to the natural world. The giants, or Jotnar, are central to the Norse worldview. While they are often seen as enemies of the gods, they are also symbolic of the primal forces of chaos and destruction that are always in opposition to the order and structure the gods seek to maintain. The Jotnar represent the wild, untamed aspects of nature, storms, floods, and earthquakes that cannot be fully controlled. They are both a threat to the gods and a necessary part of the cosmic balance. For without chaos, there can be no order. The gods' struggle against the giants is not just a battle of good versus evil, but a reflection of the ongoing tension between civilization and nature, between order and chaos. The mythological landscape of Rome and its predecessors is rich with stories that weave together the realms of gods, heroes, and the very fabric of the Roman state. Unlike the ancient Greeks, whose mythology was filled with gods who represented an array of human traits, the Romans focused more on the concepts of power, law, and order, often portraying their gods as beings who not only govern the natural world, but also helped shape the destiny of the Roman people. Roman mythology was deeply intertwined with the birth and expansion of the Roman Empire, reflecting its ideals of conquest, virtue, and the supremacy of law and governance. In this context, gods were not just worshipped for personal salvation or prosperity. They were invoked for the well-being of the state, its power, and its future. At the heart of Roman mythology was the figure of Jupiter, the king of the gods and the god of the sky. Jupiter's role in Roman religion was paramount, for he was not just a deity of the heavens, but the protector of the Roman state itself. Known for his authority, justice, and power, Jupiter was often depicted as a figure who wielded the thunderbolt, a symbol of his ability to control both the natural world and the fates of men. In many ways, Jupiter embodied the very ideals of Roman society: strength, leadership, and the divine right of kings. The myth of Jupiter and his siblings Juno and Neptune was foundational to understanding Roman belief systems. These gods, known as the Capitoline Triad, were considered the central deities of Roman worship and were revered not just by individuals but by the entire state. Jupiter's role as a god who upheld divine order made him the supreme authority, both in the heavens and on earth. Juno, his wife and sister, was a goddess of marriage and childbirth, but she was also a protector of the Roman people. Juno's character was one of strength and resilience, yet she was also a figure of jealousy and vengeance, particularly in myths that involve her relationships with the other gods. Her complex nature, reflecting both maternal protection and fierce independence, made her one of the most powerful and revered figures in Roman religion. Juno's role in Roman society was closely tied to the ideals of family and state, as she was seen as a guardian of the home, ensuring the prosperity and survival of families. As the protector of the Roman women, Juno was often invoked during times of childbirth and marriage, and her image was placed in homes and temples as a reminder of her enduring protection. Neptune, the brother of Jupiter and god of the sea, was a deity who, like his siblings, held immense power over the Roman world. The Romans saw Neptune not just as a god of the oceans, but as a force that influenced all bodies of water, from the rivers that nourished the land to the seas that brought prosperity through trade and conquest. Neptune's relationship with the Roman Empire was symbolic of the Romans' connection to their power over the natural world. Neptune was often invoked by soldiers, sailors, and statesmen alike, as his favor was believed to bring success in naval battles, voyages, and the expansion of Roman territory. The belief that Neptune controlled not only the seas but also the forces of nature, storms, earthquakes, and floods, made him a formidable figure in Roman myth. Yet, unlike the Greek Poseidon, Neptune was a more stable and less capricious god, reflecting the Romans' desire for control over the uncontrollable elements of the world. While the major gods of Rome, like Jupiter, Juno, and Neptune, were central to the lives of the people, Roman mythology also embraced a vast array of minor deities, spirits, and personifications that represented various aspects of life and death. One of the most important of these was Mars, the god of war, who embodied not only the martial prowess of the Roman soldier, but also the ideals of discipline, courage, and loyalty. Mars was a god of both war and agriculture, which may seem contradictory, but in Roman society, these two domains were linked to the concept of strength and protection. Mars was revered as a protector of the Roman state, and his presence in Roman mythology underscored the empire's constant pursuit of military conquest and territorial expansion. The myth of Mars and his relationship with Venus, the goddess of love, symbolized a delicate balance between war and peace, power and beauty, showing that the Roman state's strength relied on both martial prowess and social unity. Venus herself, as the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility, played a crucial role in the moral and social fabric of Roman society. Venus was often considered a symbol of the vitality and prosperity of the Roman people. In myths, Venus was depicted as a nurturing figure, responsible for ensuring fertility of the land and the growth of the Roman population. However, Venus also represented the more sensual and passionate aspects of life, and her story with Mars reflected the dual nature of the Roman worldview, where love and war were inextricably connected. Venus's influence in Roman mythology was especially significant in the founding of the Roman Empire itself, as she was said to be the ancestor of the Trojan hero Aeneas, whose descendants, through the hero Romulus, founded Rome. The connection between Venus and Aeneas is particularly important, for it legitimized the Roman people's divine right to rule, claiming their heritage directly from the gods. Another figure central to Roman mythology is Mercury, the god of commerce, communication, and travel. Mercury was not only the messenger of the gods, but also the protector of merchants, thieves, and travelers. His role as a divine intermediary between the gods and humanity was vital in ensuring the smooth functioning of Roman society. Mercury's quick wit and ability to move between worlds, whether he was guiding souls to the underworld or aiding merchants with their trade, made him a figure of great importance in the Roman pantheon. He was a god who was both playful and serious, reflecting the balance that the Romans sought to achieve in their daily lives. Africa, a continent rich in diversity, history, and culture, is home to a vast array of myths and legends that have shaped the spiritual and social landscapes of its many peoples. These myths are deeply rooted in the understanding of nature, the divine, and the connections between humanity and the unseen forces that govern the world. From the deserts of Sahara to the rainforests of Central Africa, African mythology offers a unique lens through which the people of the continent have understood their place in the world. The myths are not simply stories, but powerful symbols that speak to the core values of African societies, such as community, respect for the earth, and the belief in the interconnectedness of all living things. At the heart of many African myths is the concept of ancestral spirits, the belief that the deceased continue to play an active role in the lives of their descendants. These spirits are often seen as protectors, guiding and watching over their families and communities. In many African traditions, ancestors are revered, and their wisdom is sought in times of decision-making. This reverence for the dead is closely tied to belief in the cyclical nature of life and death. It is thought that the spirits of the ancestors watch over the living, offering guidance, protection, and blessings, but also holding the power to bring misfortune if their memory is disrespected. This belief in the living relationship with the dead is one of the most central and enduring aspects of African mythology, shaping the way people understand the passage of time and their connection to past generations. In the Yoruba tradition of West Africa, the concept of Orisha, the divine forces that govern the universe, plays a central role in the understanding of life and the cosmos. The Orisha are deities associated with different aspects of life, such as creation, fertility, wisdom, love, and war. Each Orisha has its own distinct personality, powers, and followers, and it is believed that through rituals and offerings, people can communicate with these deities to gain their favor or seek guidance. One of the most prominent Orisha is Alakin, the deity of the sea and the ocean, who embodies both the nurturing and destructive aspects of water. Alakin is seen as a powerful force, capable of both blessing and bringing calamity, depending on how humanity interacts with the natural world. The Yoruba belief system highlights the balance between the forces of nature and humanity's role in maintaining harmony with these forces. The importance of rituals, sacrifices, and reverence for the Orisha reflects the deep connection between humans and the divine in Yoruba cosmology. In contrast to the Orisha tradition, other African cultures view the divine as a more abstract, overarching force. Among the Kikuyu people of Kenya, for example, the supreme god is Nai, a distant and transcendent deity who resides on Mount Kenya. Nai is the creator of the world and the giver of life, but unlike the Orisha, he is not directly involved in the everyday affairs of humanity. Instead, the Kikuyu people believe that the relationship between humans and Nai is mediated by ancestors and spirits. In this worldview, the role of the ancestors is paramount, and it is through them that people seek guidance, blessings, and protection. The Kikuyu also believe in the power of nature, particularly the mountains, rivers, and forests, which are seen as sacred spaces inhabited by spirits. This connection between the physical world and the spiritual realm is a common thread in many African belief systems, where the land itself is imbued with divine significance. The people of the Congo, particularly the Bakongo, also have a rich tradition of spiritual beliefs and mythological stories that center around the role of spirits and ancestors. The Bakongo believe in a vast network of spirits that inhabit both the living world and the afterlife. These spirits are classified into different categories, with some being ancestors, while others are nature spirits or deities associated with specific elements. One of the most powerful spiritual figures in Bakongo mythology is the god Nzambi, the creator of the universe. Nzambi is seen as both a god of creation and a god of the earth, and is believed to have created humanity from the soil. In addition to Nzambi, the Bakongo also venerate a number of spirits who are thought to reside in the natural world, such as rivers, trees, and mountains. These spirits are seen as guardians of the land, and they are invoked in rituals to ensure fertility of the soil and the prosperity of the people. The Bakongo mythological system highlights the close relationship between the spiritual and the natural worlds, where every element of nature is seen as imbued with divine energy. In southern Africa, the mythology of the Zulu people offers a different perspective on the divine. The Zulu believe in a supreme god named Unkalunkalu, the creator of all things, who resides in the heavens. However, much like the Kikuyu and Bakongo, the Zulu people believe that the relationship between the divine and the human world is mediated by ancestors. Unkalunkalu is not directly involved in the lives of Zulu people, but the ancestors, who are believed to become spirits upon their deaths, are the ones who guide and protect the living. The Zulu also have a rich tradition of stories about trickster figures, such as the spider god Anansi, who plays a role in both creation and mischief. These stories often feature animals, particularly the lion, elephant, and buffalo, as central figures in the myths, symbolizing the strength and power of the natural world. One of the most important themes in African mythology is the idea of balance and harmony. Whether it is a Yoruba belief in the Orisha, the Kikuyu reverence for Nai, or the Zulu veneration of ancestors, the common thread running through African myths is a need for balance between the spiritual and physical realms. This balance is achieved through rituals, sacrifices, and respect for the natural world. In many African traditions, the gods are not seen as distant, all-powerful beings who control the fate of humanity from afar, but as active participants in the lives of individuals and communities. The divine is intimately tied to the earth, to the ancestors, and to the forces of nature, creating a worldview where the physical and spiritual worlds are interconnected, and where human actions are seen as having a direct impact on the harmony of the universe. Another important aspect of African mythology is the role of animals and nature in the myths. Many African cultures have stories that feature animals as central characters, often imbuing them with human-like traits and abilities. The trickster figure, found in many African mythologies, is often an animal, such as the cunning fox, the clever hare, or the wise tortoise. These animals are often used as symbols to convey moral lessons, particularly about the virtues of cleverness, patience, and resourcefulness. In some cultures, animals are seen as messengers of the gods, communicating divine messages or warnings to humanity. The lion, for example, is often seen as a symbol of power and strength, while the elephant represents wisdom and memory. These animals are not only revered for their physical abilities, but also for the spiritual lessons they represent. The concept of creation is another central theme in African mythology. Many African cultures have creation myths that explain how the world and humanity came into being. In the Yoruba tradition, the Orisha are believed to have created the world from a primordial sea, while in Bakongo tradition, Nzambi is credited with creating humanity from the earth. These creation myths often emphasize the idea of transformation, with the world being shaped and molded by the gods or ancestors over time. Creation is not seen as a one-time event, but as an ongoing process, where the divine continually shapes and reshapes the world through cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. One of the most powerful aspects of African mythology is its emphasis on the collective. African myths are not only stories of individual gods or heroes, but are also stories that reflect the values of community, unity, and shared identity. The gods and spirits are often invoked not only for personal gain, but for the well-being of the community as a whole. This focus on the collective is reflected in the role of rituals, which are often communal events that bring people together to honor the gods, seek protection from evil spirits, and ensure the prosperity of the group. These rituals, whether they involve offerings, dances, songs, or sacrifices, are a way for the people to express their connection to the divine and to one another. In conclusion, African mythology is a vast and diverse field that offers a deep and complex understanding of the relationship between humanity, the divine, and the natural world. Through the myths of the Yoruba, Kikuyu, Bakongo, Zulu, and countless other cultures, African peoples have developed a rich tapestry of stories that reflect their values, beliefs, and worldview. These myths are not just relics of the past, but living traditions that continue to shape the lives of millions of people across the continent. They remind us of the power of the divine, the importance of balance and harmony, and the deep connection between humanity and the world around us. Through these stories, the people of Africa have maintained profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, from the gods to the ancestors, from the land to the creatures that inhabit it. In the vast and diverse cultures of Native American peoples, myths and legends have always played an integral role in shaping their spiritual beliefs, cultural practices, and understanding of the world. These stories are not just simple tales. They are profound expressions of the relationship between humans, nature, and the divine. They reveal a deep reverence of the earth, its creatures, and the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Across different tribes, Native American mythology varies greatly. Yet many themes recur, including the importance of balance, harmony, and respect for the natural world. The myths often focus on the connection between the spirit world and the human world, with many stories exploring the ways in which humans interact with nature and the supernatural. One of the most important figures in Native American mythology is the trickster, a shape-shifting, mischievous character found in many cultures. The trickster is often portrayed as a being who challenges social norms, defies conventions, and brings chaos to the world, yet also teaches valuable lessons. While sometimes seen as a clown or fool, the trickster is often a figure of great wisdom, teaching people important moral lessons about humility, cleverness, and survival. Among the most famous trickster figures is Coyote, a central character in many Native American stories, particularly among the tribes of the Southwest and Great Plains. Coyote is both a creator and a destroyer, a figure who brings both misfortune and fortune to those he encounters. His antics are often comedic, but they also reflect the complexities of the world, where good and bad, creation and destruction are intertwined. Coyote's stories often focus on his desire to create and shape the world, but his actions are usually reckless or driven by selfishness, resulting in unintended consequences. These stories serve to remind listeners that even the most well-intentioned actions can lead to unforeseen outcomes, and that wisdom often comes through learning from mistakes. In the Lakota Sioux tradition, the character of Iktomi, another trickster figure, plays a similar role. Iktomi is often depicted as a spider, and his stories are filled with deception, manipulation, and lessons about the dangers of vanity, pride, and greed. Like Coyote, Iktomi's behavior often leads to chaos, but the lessons derived from his misadventures are profound. The trickster figure, in its many forms, serves as a cultural archetype that challenges the status quo and reminds people of the delicate balance between order and chaos, wisdom and folly. These stories are not merely entertainment, but serve as tools for teaching important life lessons and maintaining cultural norms. Many Native American myths also focus on the concept of creation and the origins of the world. The Navajo people, for instance, have a complex creation story that speaks to the emergence of the world from the spiritual realm. According to Navajo mythology, The first world was a place of darkness and confusion, inhabited by spiritual beings who were constantly fighting. The gods eventually decided to create a new world, and the holy people, ordained deities, played a significant role in shaping the world and bringing order to the chaos. They are said to have created the earth, the sky, and the creatures that inhabit them, as well as the plants and animals that sustain life. The Navajo creation myth emphasizes the interconnectedness of all living things and the importance of maintaining balance and harmony with nature. Similarly, the Hopi people of the Southwest have their own creation myth, which speaks of the emergence of the first people from the underworld. In Hopi mythology, the earth was created by a deity known as Tawa, the sun god, who brought light and warmth to the world. The first people were created from clay, and they emerged from the underworld, guided by the Kachinas, spiritual beings who serve as intermediaries between the gods and humans. These stories speak to the Hopi people's deep connection to the earth, the importance of the sun, and the role of spiritual beings in shaping the world. For the Hopi, the world is not a static place but a dynamic, living entity that is constantly being shaped by the forces of creation and destruction. The myths of the Plains tribes, such as the Cheyenne and the Blackfeet, often center around the role of animals and their symbolic importance in the lives of the people. Among these tribes, animals were not just seen as creatures to be hunted or feared. They were seen as spiritual beings with wisdom and power. The buffalo, for instance, hold a central place in Plains mythology, particularly for the Lakota and Cheyenne people. The buffalo is revered as a sacred being, a provider of life, and an essential part of the people's survival. Buffalo were not only a source of food, but also provided materials for clothing, shelter, and tools. In many myths, the buffalo is a symbol of abundance, strength, and resilience. The story of the first buffalo hunt, in which a young warrior must prove his bravery and skill to earn the right to hunt the buffalo, is a common theme in many Plains myths. The buffalo is also believed to be a spirit being, and hunting it was seen as a sacred ritual that required respect and gratitude. The importance of animals in Native American mythology extends beyond the buffalo. The wolf, eagle, bear, and other animals are often imbued with spiritual significance and are considered to be teachers, protectors, and guides. The wolf, for example, is a symbol of loyalty, courage, and intelligence in many Native American cultures. In some myths, wolves are seen as guides to the afterlife or as protectors of the people. Similarly, the eagle, often regarded as a messenger between the spiritual and earthly realms, is a symbol of strength, freedom, and vision. The feathers of the eagle are considered sacred and are often used in rituals and ceremonies to connect the people with the divine. Through these animal-based myths, Native Americans express their belief in the interconnectedness of all life, recognizing that humans are just one part of a larger, spiritual ecosystem. In the rich tapestry of Chinese mythology, the gods, spirits, and legends that have evolved over thousands of years offer an intricate view of the cosmos, human nature, and the divine order. These stories reflect the values, philosophy, and cultural ideals of a civilization that has contributed greatly to the world's understanding of balance, harmony, and the relationship between humans and the universe. The myths of ancient China are not only reflections of ancient beliefs, but also embody deep philosophical insights into the world, many of which are still relevant today. At the heart of Chinese mythology is a concept of balance, particularly the balance between yin and yang, the fundamental duality that permeates the universe. Yin and yang represent opposing yet complementary forces, one dark and passive, the other light and active. These forces govern everything from the cycles of nature to human relationships, and they are essential in maintaining harmony and order in the world. This concept of duality is most vividly expressed in the stories of the creation of the world, where cosmic balance is achieved through the interplay of forces. The primordial chaos, often represented as a vast, formless void, was the source of everything. From this chaos emerged Pangu, the giant who, with a mighty effort, separated the heavens from the earth. This myth is one of the most famous creation stories in Chinese mythology, symbolizing the birth of order from chaos and the beginning of the natural world as we know it. As Pangu grew, so did the world, with his breath becoming the wind, his voice the thunder, and his body the mountains and rivers. His death, after eons of labor, gave rise to the elements of nature, further emphasizing the cyclical and transformative nature of the universe. The myth of Pangu's creation of the world mirrors many ancient traditions in its depiction of a cosmic being who sacrifices himself to bring forth life and order. It reflects a Confucian idea of selflessness and the Taoist concept of living in harmony with the universe, both of which are central to Chinese culture. The death of Pangu is symbolic of the ongoing processes of transformation, a recurring theme in Chinese mythology. Just as Pangu gave up his body to create the world, the Taoist philosophy teaches that everything in life is constantly changing and evolving. The flow of life, death, and rebirth is natural and should be embraced, as it leads to a state of balance and harmony. In addition to the overarching principles of creation and cosmic order, Chinese mythology is rich with deities and spirits that embody the natural world and human experience. Among the most revered figures is the Jade Emperor, a celestial god who rules over the heavens and the earthly realms. As the supreme ruler of all beings, both mortal and immortal, the Jade Emperor embodies the authority and governance that are central to Chinese thought. He is often depicted as a just and compassionate figure who oversees the operations of the universe, ensuring that balance and order are maintained. His role is similar to that of a sovereign ruler who governs the empire, and many of the stories surrounding him highlight the importance of justice, wisdom, and fairness in leadership. One of the most important myths related to the Jade Emperor is the tale of the Great Race, which explains the origins of the Chinese zodiac. In this myth, the Jade Emperor organizes a race among the animals to determine the order in which they will be assigned to the zodiac. The cleverness and perseverance of each animal play a significant role in the final outcome, and the story teaches lessons about humility, resourcefulness, and the importance of effort over mere appearance. This myth, with its emphasis on the moral qualities of the animals and the rewards of hard work, is a reflection of the deeply rooted Confucian ideals of virtue and personal development. Another major figure in Chinese mythology is the goddess Nuwa, who is often regarded as a creator of humanity. According to legend, after the world was formed, Nuwa saw that the earth was empty, and she decided to create human beings. Initially, she shaped humans from clay, giving them life through a gentle breath. However, Nuwa found that her creation was imperfect, and that the clay people could not survive without proper guidance. In an effort to bring them into the world of the living, Nuwa introduced the concept of marriage, creating the first unions between men and women. She also played a crucial role in repairing the sky after it was damaged by the destruction of a great battle between the gods. This myth symbolizes the creation of order and harmony in both the human and divine realms, emphasizing the importance of balance and the nurturing role that women play in both creation and society. The myth of Nuwa also ties into the broader themes of Chinese mythology, particularly the notion of cosmic restoration and the cyclical nature of existence. Nuwa's ability to repair the sky after the gods' conflict reflects the idea that the universe is constantly in need of repair, whether through physical or moral actions. In the land of Japan, where ancient traditions blend seamlessly with the natural beauty of mountains, forests, and rivers, the rich and intricate world of mythology has shaped the culture, spirituality, and daily life of the people for centuries. Japanese mythology is deeply rooted in the Shinto religion, which focuses on a reverence of nature and a belief that everything, mountains, rivers, trees, and even objects, has a spirit or kami. These kami are not distant or abstract beings. They're intimate parts of the world, deeply connected to the land, the elements, and the cycles of life. The stories of gods, spirits, and legendary figures in Japanese mythology offer profound understanding of the relationship between humanity and the divine, and they continue to play a central role in the lives of people in Japan today. One of the central deities in Japanese mythology is Amaterasu, the sun goddess, who is considered the most important and revered kami in the Shinto pantheon. According to legend, Amaterasu was born from the left eye of the primordial god Izanagi when he purified himself after returning from the underworld. She is the ruler of the heavens and the source of light and life, symbolizing the power and energy of the sun. Amaterasu's role as the sun goddess reflects the centrality of light in Japanese mythology, where light is not only a physical source of warmth and sustenance, but also a symbol of spiritual illumination and enlightenment. Her myth is intertwined with the creation of the Japanese imperial family, as she is believed to be the ancestor of the Japanese emperors, who are considered her direct descendants. This divine connection to Amaterasu has played a central role in the legitimization of the imperial family, establishing them as sacred rulers with a divine mandate. One of the most famous myths associated with Amaterasu is the story of a retreat into the heavenly cave, an event that caused the world to fall into darkness. This myth is significant, as it portrays Amaterasu not only as the embodiment of light, but also as a symbol of the divine forces of order and harmony. The myth tells of how Amaterasu, angered by the actions of her brother Susanoo, the storm god, withdrew into a cave, plunging the world into an eternal night. The gods, desperate to bring her out and restore light to the world, devised a clever plan. They placed a mirror outside the cave and began to sing and dance, creating a spectacle that piqued Amaterasu's curiosity. When she peered out of the cave, she saw her own reflection in the mirror, which drew her back into the world, thus bringing light and life back to the earth. This myth, often interpreted as a symbolic representation of the sun's daily cycle of hiding and re-emerging, speaks to the power of self-reflection, the restoration of balance, and the role of ritual in maintaining cosmic order. While Amaterasu is the most prominent of the celestial deities, other gods and goddesses in Japanese mythology also hold significant roles in shaping the natural world and the lives of humans. Among them is Susanoo, the storm god, who is often portrayed as a powerful and unpredictable figure, capable of both great destruction and great kindness. Susanoo's myth is filled with dramatic moments, including his famous battle with the eight-headed serpent Orochi. According to legend, Susanoo encountered Orochi, a fearsome dragon that had been terrorizing a village, and with the help of his sister Amaterasu and the gods, he defeated the beast by intoxicating it with sake and then slaying it with his sword. From the tail of the serpent, Susanoo obtained the Kusanagi sword, which would become one of the 3 sacred treasures of Japan, symbolizing the divine authority of the emperor. The story of Susanoo and Orochi is not only a tale of heroism and bravery, but also a reflection of the primal forces of nature, where storms and destruction are balanced by creation and renewal. In addition to Amaterasu and Susanoo, another key deity in Japanese mythology is Tsukuyomi, the moon god, who is a sibling of Amaterasu and Susanoo. Tsukuyomi's role in the pantheon is more mysterious and less well-known than his sisters, but his story is equally significant. Tsukuyomi is often depicted as a god of the night, whose presence governs the quiet, reflective hours of the evening. His myth is closely linked to the theme of duality, as he is in constant opposition to Amaterasu, the sun goddess. While the sun represents the active, outward forces of life, the moon embodies the passive, inward energies of reflection and rest. Tsukuyomi's myth is also marked by his tragic separation from Amaterasu. According to one version of the myth, Tsukuyomi, in a moment of anger, killed the food goddess Yukmachi, which led to his banishment from the realm of the gods and his separation from his sister, who withdrew into her cave. This myth reflects the tension between the celestial forces of light and dark, and the delicate balance required to maintain harmony in the world. Another significant myth in Japanese folklore is the story of the creation of Japan itself. According to the Kojiki, one of the earliest records of Japanese mythology, the islands of Japan were created by the deities Izanagi and Izanami. These 2 gods, who are often regarded as the parents of many other gods, were tasked with creating the land. They stirred the ocean with a spear, and as the drops of water fell from the spear, they formed the islands of Japan. This myth of creation is not just about the physical formation of the land, but about the spiritual connection between the people of Japan and their homeland. The land is seen as sacred, imbued with the spirits of the gods, and the act of creation is symbolic of the divine energy that flows through the earth. The myth of Izanagi and Izanami also reflects the cyclical nature of life and death, as Izanami dies giving birth to god of fire, and Izanagi's search for her in the underworld symbolizes the constant tension between life and death, creation and destruction. The importance of nature in Japanese mythology is further emphasized in the stories of various kami associated with natural elements, such as rivers, mountains, and forests. In the Pacific Islands, myths and legends form the cornerstone of cultural identity, deeply influencing the daily lives and spiritual practices of the people. These stories are not merely passed down as historical accounts, but are living expressions of a deep connection between the island's inhabitants and the natural world around them. Each island, each culture, has its own rich tapestry of myths that reflect the unique landscapes, social structures, and spiritual beliefs of its people. However, common themes across the Pacific Island myths revolve around creation, the interplay between gods and humans, the sea, and the sacredness of nature. These myths are vehicles for understanding the forces that shape life on the islands and the importance of living in harmony with both the natural and spiritual worlds. One of the central themes in many Pacific Island myths is the connection to the ocean. The sea is not just a source of livelihood and sustenance, but a spiritual realm, home to gods, spirits, and powerful creatures that influence human lives. In Polynesian mythology, the ocean is often seen as a great unifier, connecting the islands and bringing together the different peoples of the Pacific. The god Tangaroa, for instance, is one of the most revered deities in Polynesia, representing the sea, ocean creatures, and all that is contained within the waters. He is a creator god who, according to myths, shaped the world and filled it with life. Tangaroa is not just the god of the sea, but also the protector of those who sail upon it, watching over them as they journey from one island to another. His influence is felt deeply in the lives of the islanders, whose connection to the sea is central to their survival and cultural practices. In some traditions, the sea is not always a benevolent force. The stories of sea monsters and spirits reflect the ocean's unpredictable nature. The great eel or serpent, known as Moana or other local names, often appears in myths as a powerful creature capable of both helping and hindering humans. These stories are symbolic of the dangers of the sea, storms, giant waves, and the vast, unexplored depths. However, even these creatures are not entirely evil. They are part of the broader cosmology that governs the relationship between the land, sea, and the people. The conflict between the forces of nature, such as the mighty ocean and the fragile human presence, is a recurring theme in Pacific myths, illustrating the tension between the known and unknown, between human ambition and the uncontrollable forces of nature. Alongside Tangaroa, another key figure in many Pacific myths is the demigod Maui. Maui is a trickster, culture hero, and shapeshifter, famous for his deeds that shaped the world and benefited humankind. The myths of Maui vary widely across the Pacific Islands, but they often include common elements that emphasize his cleverness, strength, and audacity. One of Maui's most famous exploits is his attempt to slow the sun. According to the myth, Maui, dissatisfied with the short days, captured the sun by using his magical fishhook, forcing it to slow down so that the days would be longer. This myth is symbolic of the relationship between humans and the forces of nature, where gods and mortals alike must work together to maintain harmony in the world. Maui's myth reflects the Pacific Islanders' need to control and understand the forces of nature that affect their daily lives, particularly the sun, which governs the rhythms of work, rest, and ritual. Another myth attributed to Maui is his fishing up of the islands themselves. In some traditions, Maui uses his magical fishhook to drag land from the ocean, creating the islands of the Pacific. This myth is central to understanding the Pacific Islanders' relationship with their environment. The islands are seen as sacred gifts, created through the actions of gods and heroes like Maui. The islands themselves are not merely land masses. They are living entities, imbued with the spirits of the gods, ancestors, and forces of nature. The creation of the islands through Maui's magical hook is a reminder of the power of myth in shaping the landscape and giving it meaning, as the islands are not just physical places, but also spiritual realms where gods and mortals interact. In the mythology of the Marquesas Islands, there is a similar creation myth in which the islands are formed from the union of the sky and the sea. These islands are seen as sacred places, where the gods came down to earth to dwell. The gods are often believed to have created the islands as a paradise, where humans could live in peace and harmony with nature. However, as with many creation myths, the islands are not perfect places. They are filled with challenges, temptations, and tests that force the people to prove their worth and maintain balance with the gods and nature. These myths are rich in symbolism, reflecting the idea that paradise is not a state of passive enjoyment, but a realm that requires active engagement and respect for the divine. The role of ancestors in Pacific Island mythology is also central. Ancestors are revered not only as important figures in the history of the islands, but as active participants in the spiritual life of the community. In many myths, ancestors are believed to have become spirits who continue to guide and protect their descendants. These spirits are often invoked in rituals and ceremonies, where offerings are made to honor them and seek their blessings. The myth of the Aumakua spirits of Hawaii, for example, tells of family ancestors who have taken on the form of animals, such as sharks or owls, and watch over their descendants. These ancestral spirits are seen as guardians, ensuring the safety of the family and the well-being of the land. The importance of ancestors is also reflected in the concept of mana, the spiritual power or energy that is believed to flow through all things. Mana is a divine energy that resides in the gods, the spirits, the land, and even in individuals. It is often passed down through generations, with ancestors bestowing mana upon their descendants. In the vast and diverse landscapes of South America, mythology has long served as a powerful means of understanding the world, explaining natural phenomena, and preserving cultural identity. From the high Andes Mountains to the dense Amazon rainforest, the myths of the Inca, Aztec, and other indigenous peoples reflect a profound connection to the environment, a deep reverence for the divine, and an understanding of human life as intrinsically linked to the natural and spiritual realms. These myths are not merely tales of gods and heroes. They are moral frameworks, historical records, and philosophical reflections on existence, interwoven with the cycles of life, death, and renewal. Among the most influential civilizations in South America, the Inca established a rich mythological system that was deeply tied to their understanding of nature and the cosmos. Central to Inca mythology is the sun god Inti, who was revered as the source of life, warmth, and agricultural fertility. The Inca considered themselves children of Inti, and the emperor, or Sapa Inca, was regarded as a living descendant of the sun god, endowed with divine authority to govern the people. Inti's role extended beyond mere symbolism. He was central to the daily lives of the Inca, guiding planting and harvest cycles, regulating festivals, and ensuring prosperity of the land. Festivals dedicated to Inti, such as Inti Raymi, were celebrated with great ritual, music, and dance, reaffirming the bond between the divine, the emperor, and the people. Through these myths, the Inca maintained a sense of harmony and order, recognizing the interdependence between humans, the land, and the divine forces that shaped their existence. Another key figure in Inca mythology is Pachamama, the earth goddess, who embodies fertility, abundance, and the nurturing aspects of the natural world. Pachamama was believed to sustain life, providing food, water, and resources necessary for survival. Her influence extended to the mountains, rivers, and valleys, which were seen as sacred and imbued with her spirit. One of the most prominent Orisha is Alakan, the deity of the sea and the ocean, who embodies both the nurturing and destructive aspects of water. Alakan is seen as a powerful force, capable of both blessing and bringing calamity, depending on how humanity interacts with the natural world. The Yoruba belief system highlights the balance between the forces of nature and humanity's role in maintaining harmony with these forces. The importance of rituals, sacrifices, and reverence to the Orisha reflects the deep connection between humans and the divine in Yoruba cosmology. In contrast to the Orisha tradition, other African cultures view the divine as a more abstract, overarching force. Among the Kikuyu people of Kenya, for example, the supreme god is Nai, a distant and transcendent deity who resides on Mount Kenya. Nai is the creator of the world and the giver of life, but unlike the Orisha, he is not directly involved in the everyday affairs of humanity. Instead, the Kikuyu people believe that the relationship between humans and Nai is mediated by ancestors and spirits. In this worldview, the role of the ancestors is paramount, and it is through them that people seek guidance, blessings, and protection. The Kikuyu also believe in the power of nature, particularly the mountains, rivers, and forests, which are seen as sacred spaces inhabited by spirits. This connection between the physical world and the spiritual realm is a common thread in many African belief systems, where the land itself is imbued with divine significance. The people of the Congo, particularly the Bakongo, also have a rich tradition of spiritual beliefs and mythological stories that center around the role of spirits and ancestors. The Bakongo believe in a vast network of spirits that inhabit both the living world and the afterlife. These spirits are classified into different categories, with some being ancestors, while others are nature spirits or deities associated with specific elements. The Inca performed regular offerings, rituals, and ceremonies to honor Pachamama, ensuring that she remained benevolent and continued to bless the land. These practices illustrate the profound connection the Inca had with nature, recognizing it as both sacred and essential to their survival. Through the veneration of Pachamama, they express an understanding of reciprocity. Humans must care for the earth, and in return, the earth provides sustenance, growth, and balance. The myths of the Aztec civilization, located in what is now central Mexico, offer a complementary perspective on the interplay between gods, humans, and the natural world. Central to Aztec mythology is the god Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and war, whose myth underscores the cyclical struggle between light and darkness, life and death. According to legend, Huitzilopochtli was born fully armed, emerging from his mother Coatlicue, and immediately defended himself against his siblings, who sought to kill him. This dramatic birth is symbolic of the perpetual conflict between the forces of creation and destruction, a theme that pervades Aztec cosmology. Huitzilopochtli's victory ensured the continuation of life, yet also established the necessity of ongoing struggle. The Aztecs believed that the sun required nourishment in the form of human sacrifice to maintain its journey across the sky, reflecting a worldview in which life and death are intimately linked and where human actions sustain the cosmic order. Alongside Huitzilopochtli, the Aztecs revered Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, who represents wisdom, creation, and civilization. Quetzalcoatl is depicted as a benevolent deity who brought knowledge, agriculture, and the arts to humanity. His myths often focus on the duality of creation and destruction, as he is both a creator and a teacher of moral conduct. Quetzalcoatl's presence in Aztec mythology highlights the importance of knowledge, morality, and cultural development in maintaining harmony within society. The interplay between Quetzalcoatl and Huitzilopochtli reflects the Aztec understanding of balance. While Huitzilopochtli represents the necessary force of life-sustaining struggle, Quetzalcoatl embodies the guiding principles of civilization and ethics. The theme of duality is further explored through myths concerning the underworld and the afterlife. In both Inca and Aztec belief systems, the journey after death was seen as a continuation of life, influenced by moral conduct and spiritual alignment. The Inca believed that the soul of the deceased traveled to an underworld known as Ukupasha, where it would continue its existence and interact with the spirits of ancestors and deities. In the Aztec tradition, Mictlantecuhtli, the god of death, ruled over Mictlan, the underworld, where souls underwent trials to reach their final resting place. These beliefs highlight the importance of ethical living, ritual observance, and respect for the divine order, as the fate of the soul was closely tied to actions taken during mortal life. Both cultures viewed death not as an end, but as a stage in an ongoing cycle, emphasizing the interconnectedness of existence, morality, and spirituality. In addition to the major gods and cosmic themes, South American mythology is rich with stories that explain the origins of the natural world, cultural practices, and human institutions. Many myths feature heroic figures or demigods who interact with the divine and shape the landscape. In Inca mythology, for example, Manco Capac and Mama Oclo are regarded as the legendary founders of the Inca civilization. Emerging from the sacred lake Titicaca, they were sent by Indy to teach humanity the arts of civilization, including agriculture, governance, and social organization. These myths serve both as creation narratives and as legitimizing stories for the political and social structures of the Inca Empire, reinforcing the divine authority of rulers and the sacredness of cultural practices. Similarly, Aztec myths feature heroes whose actions shape human society and the natural world. The myth of the Five Suns, for instance, describes successive epochs in which the world was created and destroyed multiple times, each era ruled by a different deity. Humanity is repeatedly destroyed due to imbalance, disrespect, or failure to honor the gods, only to be recreated anew. This cyclical view of time reflects the Aztec understanding of impermanence, the necessity of balance, and the consequences of human and divine actions. It also underscores the importance of ritual and moral conduct, as humans were seen as co-creators with the gods, responsible for maintaining cosmic harmony through proper behavior, offerings, and ceremonies. Another prominent aspect of South American mythology is the emphasis on the sacredness of nature and the interdependence between humans and the environment. The Amazonian tribes, for example, have myths that center on the forest, rivers, and animals, reflecting their intimate knowledge of and reliance on the rainforest ecosystem. Spirits inhabit every aspect of nature, from trees and rivers to birds and jaguars, and these spirits are revered, feared, and respected. Many myths involve moral lessons about the treatment of the environment, emphasizing that humans are caretakers of the land and must act in harmony with its rhythms. Violating the natural order could bring misfortune or divine retribution, while respecting it ensures fertility, abundance, and protection. These beliefs fostered a sustainable relationship with the environment, emphasizing reciprocity, respect, and mindfulness. The myths also often convey lessons about social cohesion, justice, and the responsibilities of leaders. Among both the Inca and Aztec, divine sanction legitimized rulers, reinforcing the connection between governance, morality, and spiritual authority. The Sapa Inca, as a descendant of Inti, was both a political and religious figure, responsible for maintaining the welfare of the empire and the favor of the gods. Similarly, Aztec rulers were seen as intermediaries between humans and the divine, obligated to perform rituals, lead wars, and enforce moral codes to preserve balance in the cosmos. Through these myths, social and political structures were reinforced, blending spiritual guidance with practical governance, and ensuring that moral and civic duties were inseparable from religious observance. South American mythology in its entirety reveals a worldview deeply attuned to the cycles of nature, the interdependence of humanity and the divine, and the moral responsibilities of individuals and communities. The myths convey a holistic understanding of existence, where creation, destruction, life, death, and renewal are intertwined in a continuous cycle. The gods, heroes, and spirits reflect the forces of nature, the challenges of human life, and the necessity of balance and harmony. Through these stories, the people of the Andes, Mesoamerica, and the Amazon not only explain the world around them, but also instill a profound sense of moral duty, spiritual awareness, and respect for the environment. In conclusion, the myths of South America are not merely historical or religious artifacts. They are dynamic narratives that continue to influence culture, identity, and moral thought. Whether through the solar authority of Inti, the nurturing presence of Pachamama, the cyclical epics of the Five Suns, or the sacred spirits of the Amazon rainforest, these myths offer profound insights into human relationship with nature, the divine, and society itself. They remind us that life is a continuous interplay of creation and destruction, that the natural and spiritual worlds are inseparable, and that the responsibility to maintain harmony and balance is a duty that extends to all aspects of existence. In the vast cultural and geographical expanse of Africa, myths and legends have been crucial in shaping the worldview, values, and spiritual understanding of its diverse peoples. From the deserts of Sahara to the lush rainforests of Central Africa, mythology is woven into the fabric of everyday life, offering explanations for the mysteries of nature, human existence, and the divine. These stories, passed down orally from generation to generation, are more than just tales of gods, spirits, and heroes. They are fundamental expressions of cultural identity, moral teachings, and a deep reverence for the natural world. The myths of Africa speak of creation, of the earth's rhythms, of the relationships between humanity and the supernatural, and of the forces that govern life, death, and rebirth. One of the most important themes in African mythology is the belief in a supreme God, often viewed as the creator of the universe, who governs the cosmos with wisdom and authority. In many African cultures, this supreme being is not directly involved in the daily affairs of humans, but is seen as the source of all life and the force that maintains order in the world. Among the Yoruba of West Africa, for instance, the god Olodumare is believed to be the creator of the universe, an all-powerful force who set the world in motion. Olodumare's role is one of transcendence, existing beyond human understanding, and often distant from the concerns of daily life. However, the deity's presence is felt in the world through the Orisha, lesser gods who embody various forces of nature, such as thunder, rivers, fertility, and war. The Orisha are actively involved in the lives of humans, guiding them, protecting them, and sometimes challenging them. They are intermediaries between humanity and Olodumare, and it is through them that humans seek blessings, advice, and protection. In addition to the supreme god, many African cultures have a rich pantheon of spirits, ancestors, and lesser deities who inhabit the world. These spirits are often believed to be the souls of ancestors, who continue to play an active role in the lives of their descendants. In the belief system of the Akan people of Ghana, for example, ancestors are honored as powerful spirits who guide and protect the living. The Akan people believe that the spirits of their ancestors live on in the natural world, particularly in the earth, trees, rivers, and mountains. Through rituals and offerings, the living maintain their connection with these spirits, ensuring their protection and favor. Ancestor worship, in this sense, is not just about remembering the past, but about maintaining an ongoing, living relationship with those who have passed on, recognizing that the wisdom and strength of the ancestors continue to shape the present. The concept of balance and harmony is central to many African myths. It is believed that the world operates through a delicate balance of forces, good and evil, life and death, creation and destruction. These forces are often represented by deities or spirits, who maintain order by ensuring that the cycles of nature and life proceed smoothly. In many African mythologies, the forces of chaos, often personified as evil spirits or trickster figures, must be contained or defeated to restore harmony. The trickster is a recurring figure in African mythology, a being who defies conventions and brings about change through cunning and cleverness. While the trickster may seem mischievous or even dangerous, they are also agents of transformation, challenging the status quo and teaching valuable lessons through their antics. Among the most famous trickster figures in African mythology is Anansi, the spider god of the Akan people. Anansi is often depicted as a clever, sometimes deceptive figure who uses his wits to outsmart more powerful opponents. Many of the stories of Anansi involve him outwitting larger animals, such as lions or elephants, and using his intelligence to achieve his goals. These stories teach lessons about the value of intelligence over brute strength, and they also illustrate the complexities of human nature, how even the most seemingly powerless individuals can change their fate through cunning and resourcefulness. Anansi's myths are often humorous, but they also carry deeper meanings, reflecting the realities of African life, where survival often depended on creativity, adaptability, and the ability to navigate a world full of challenges. The role of animals in African mythology is also of great significance. Animals are often seen as sacred beings, endowed with spiritual power and wisdom. In many African cultures, animals are revered for their strength, intelligence, and connection to the divine. The lion, for example, is a symbol of courage, power, and leadership in many African myths. In the traditions of the Maasai people of East Africa, the lion is regarded as a noble creature and is associated with royalty and leadership. The stories of lions and other animals often reflect the values of bravery, strength, and honor, qualities that are highly esteemed in many African societies. The elephant, too, holds great significance in African mythology, particularly among the peoples of West and Central Africa. The elephant is revered for its size, strength, and wisdom, and it is often associated with the spirits of the ancestors. In some myths, the elephant is depicted as a powerful protector, guarding sacred places and ensuring the well-being of the community. The elephant's deep connection to the earth and the land reinforces the African belief in the sacredness of nature and the importance of living in harmony with the natural world. Through the stories of animals, African mythology teaches respect for the environment and an understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. Another prominent theme in African mythology is the concept of death and the afterlife. In many African cultures, death is not seen as the end of existence, but as a transition to another realm. The spirits of the dead are believed to live on, either in the ancestral world or in other spiritual realms, and their influence continues to shape the lives of the living. The belief in life after death is closely tied to the idea of ancestral spirits, who are thought to watch over their descendants and guide them through life's challenges. In the Yoruba tradition, for example, the souls of the dead are believed to journey to the afterlife, where they are judged by the Orisha. If they are deemed worthy, they are allowed to join the divine community of ancestors. If not, they may be sent to a realm of punishment. This belief underscores the importance of living a righteous and respectful life, for the actions of the living can affect their standing in the afterlife. In some African mythologies, the afterlife is depicted as a realm of peace and eternal rest. In the Dogon tradition of Mali, the spirits of the dead are believed to reside in a peaceful, celestial realm, where they are reunited with their ancestors. The Dogon people believe that the souls of the deceased are transformed into stars, joining the divine beings who govern the universe. This idea of transformation is a common theme in African mythology, reflecting the belief that death is not an end, but a continuation of the soul's journey, with the deceased becoming part of the spiritual realm that shapes the world. In other traditions, the afterlife is seen as a more complex journey, with souls undergoing trials or tests to determine their fate. In the traditions of the Zulu people, for example, the soul of the deceased is believed to pass through a series of trials in the afterlife, where it is judged by the ancestors. If the soul is found worthy, it is allowed to join the ancestral spirits. If not, it may be sent to a realm of darkness and suffering. This belief system emphasizes the importance of moral behavior and respect for the divine and the ancestors, as one's actions in life are believed to directly affect one's fate in the afterlife. The myths of Africa also include numerous stories of creation, where the origins of the world, humanity, and the cosmos are explained through the actions of gods and divine beings. Many African cultures have creation myths that explain how the earth was formed, how humans came into existence, and how the various elements of nature were created. In some traditions, the creator god is believed to have shaped the world from the elements, molding the land, the seas, and the skies. In others, creation is seen as a more cooperative effort between gods, spirits, and humans, with each contributing to the shaping of the world. In conclusion, African mythology is a rich and diverse tapestry of stories that reflect the spiritual, cultural, and moral values of its people. Through its gods, spirits, animals, and ancestral figures, African mythology offers profound insights into the relationship between humanity, nature, and the divine. These myths not only explain the origins of the world, but also provide a framework for understanding the human condition, teaching lessons about morality, respect for nature, and the importance of living in harmony with the spiritual forces that govern life. Through these stories, the people of Africa have created a worldview that emphasizes balance, reciprocity, and the interconnectedness of all living things, offering timeless wisdom that continues to resonate today. In the distant and intricate cultures of the Far East, mythology has long been a guiding force, influencing not only spiritual and religious beliefs, but also shaping societal values, art, literature, and everyday life. The mythological traditions of countries such as China, Japan, Korea, and Southeast Asia are deeply interwoven with their philosophies, offering profound insights into the nature of existence, the relationship between humanity and the divine, and the dynamic forces that govern the universe. From ancient creation myths to stories of gods, spirits, and legendary heroes, these myths provide a window into the cultural psyche, highlighting shared themes of balance, cosmic order, the struggle between good and evil, and the pursuit of enlightenment. In Chinese mythology, the concept of balance and harmony is central, particularly through the teachings of Taoism, Confucianism, and the ancient beliefs surrounding the forces of nature. The world in these myths is often seen as governed by an intricate web of interrelationships, with humans, gods, and nature all inextricably linked. One of the most significant and enduring myths in Chinese culture is that of the creation of the world. According to the myth, in the beginning, the universe was a chaotic void, referred to as Wuji. From this primordial chaos emerged the first being, Pangu, a giant who, with a great effort, separated the heavens from the earth. This act of cosmic division set the stage for the world as we know it. As Pangu grew, so did the world around him. His breath became the wind, his body formed the mountains, his blood became the rivers, and his eyes became the sun and the moon. Pangu's death, after eons of labor, brought about the creation of the world's elements, but also symbolized the idea of self-sacrifice for the greater good, a recurring theme in Chinese mythology. Pangu's myth represents not only the creation of the physical world, but also the notion of transformation and renewal. The gods and cosmic forces are ever-changing, continually reshaping the universe in a constant cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This is closely tied to the Chinese concept of yin and yang, where opposing forces are seen as complementary and interdependent. These forces, such as light and dark, male and female, life and death, must be in balance for the world to function harmoniously. This theme is echoed throughout Chinese myths, where gods often act as mediators, maintaining this cosmic order by restoring balance whenever it is threatened. Another pivotal figure in Chinese mythology is the Jade Emperor, the ruler of heaven and the supreme deity in Chinese folk religion. The Jade Emperor's role is not just as a celestial king, but as a figure who ensures that the universe functions according to divine laws. In many myths, the Jade Emperor serves as a judge, administering justice to both mortals and immortals. He is often depicted as wise, benevolent, but also stern, embodying the ideals of righteousness and order. His rule represents the importance of governance, both in the celestial and earthly realms. In Chinese culture, the emperor is often regarded as the intermediary between heaven and earth, and this belief is reflected in the myth of the Jade Emperor's celestial court, where gods, spirits, and other supernatural beings report to him. The myths of Chinese immortals, or Xian, also play a significant role in illustrating the importance of wisdom, virtue, and the pursuit of longevity. These immortals are often depicted as wise sages who have transcended the human condition through spiritual cultivation. One of the most famous of these immortals is the eight immortals, each of whom represents a different aspect of life: health, wealth, love, and so on. Their stories are filled with allegorical meanings, showing how the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment, moral integrity, and harmony with nature can lead to transcendence and immortality. These myths emphasize the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, or effortless action, where one must live in harmony with the natural flow of the universe, rather than struggle against it. In Japan, mythology is equally rich, with the belief systems of Shintoism and Buddhism offering a complex worldview that sees the divine permeating all aspects of life. The Shinto religion, in particular, places great emphasis on kami, the spirits or deities that inhabit both natural elements and human creations. These kami are deeply connected to the land, the mountains, rivers, and even man-made objects, reflecting a profound respect for nature and the belief that the divine can be found in all things. One of the most central myths in Japanese mythology is the story of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, who is revered as one of the principal kami in the Shinto pantheon. According to legend, Amaterasu, along with her siblings, was born from the left eye of the god Izanagi, who created the world with his wife Izanami. Amaterasu, as the goddess of the sun, brings light and warmth to the world, but her withdrawal into the heavenly cave due to a dispute with her brother Susanoo, the storm god, plunges the world into darkness. This myth is deeply symbolic, representing the cycles of day and night, the struggle between light and dark, and the renewal that follows times of adversity. The return of Amaterasu to the world, brought about by the efforts of the other gods who performed rituals and created a spectacle to draw her out of the cave, signifies the restoration of balance and harmony to the world. This myth underscores the central role of ritual and reverence in Shinto, where the actions of humans and gods alike are believed to affect the flow of cosmic order. Amaterasu's presence is also linked to the divine right of the Japanese emperors, who are believed to be her direct descendants, reinforcing the belief that the emperor is the earthly representative of the sun goddess and, by extension, the divine order. Another significant deity in Japanese mythology is Susanoo, the storm god, whose stories often reflect the dynamic forces of chaos and creation. While he is known for his temper and destructive nature, Susanoo is also a god of great strength and courage. One of his most famous myths involves his defeat of the eight-headed serpent Orochi, which had been terrorizing the land. By using his wit and cunning, Susanoo tricks the serpent into drinking sake, rendering it unconscious, and then slays it, saving a princess in the process. The story of Susanoo emphasizes themes of bravery, resourcefulness, and the restoration of balance after chaos, reflecting the Shinto belief that disorder and strife are part of the natural order and must be overcome in the pursuit of harmony. In the broader East Asian context, the mythology of Korea also shares many common elements with its neighbors, particularly in its emphasis on the relationship between humans, gods, and nature. Korean mythology, much like Chinese and Japanese traditions, is rooted in animism, where spirits inhabit the natural world. One of the most well-known figures in Korean mythology is Dangun, the legendary founder of the first Korean kingdom, Gojoseon. According to myth, Dangun was the son of Hwanung, a heavenly god, and a bear who had transformed into a woman. Dangun's birth symbolizes a union between the divine and the earthly, and his establishment of the kingdom of Gojoseon marks the beginning of Korean civilization. This myth reflects the Korean belief in the sacredness of the land and the divine origin of the Korean people. In Southeast Asia, the mythology of countries such as Thailand, Cambodia, and Indonesia also highlights the deep spiritual connections between humans and the natural world. The gods and spirits in these traditions often represent forces of nature, such as the earth, the sky, and the sea, and are worshipped for their ability to control these elements. In Thai mythology, for example, the god Phra, the four-faced Brahma, is worshipped as a god of creation and protection, overseeing all aspects of the natural and human world. His four faces represent wisdom, compassion, justice, and power, and his presence signifies the balance between the physical and spiritual realms. In Indonesian mythology, particularly in Bali, the gods and spirits are deeply involved in the lives of the people, with rituals and ceremonies playing a central role in maintaining cosmic order. The Balinese believe that everything in the universe is in a constant state of flux, and the role of the gods and spirits is to maintain balance and harmony. The goddess Dewi Sri, the goddess of rice and fertility, is one of the most revered figures in Balinese mythology, symbolizing abundance and prosperity. Her myths emphasize the importance of agriculture, community, and the interconnectedness of all life. Across all of these cultures, there is a shared belief in the importance of balance, whether it is a cosmic balance between the forces of nature, the balance between humans and the divine, or the balance between life and death. The myths of East Asia offer profound insights into the human condition, highlighting the necessity of harmony and the understanding that all aspects of life, both divine and earthly, are interdependent. Through the stories of gods, heroes, and spirits, these cultures have passed down timeless lessons about the value of wisdom, morality, and respect for the natural world, offering guidance for living in accordance with the rhythms of the universe. These myths continue to resonate today, reminding people of the delicate balance that sustains both the spiritual and physical realms.